How's it going, guys? My name's Wilson. Over the past couple years, many superstars switched teams, while the Russell Westbrook experiment for Houston has been fantastic, playing as efficient as he's ever been with no center, torching guys in the paint, while Chris Paul also worked out great for Houston before he was traded for Russ. Despite his injury late in the postseason, the team went 65-17 in 2018, but over the past 20 years, a bunch of former superstars have been disappointing after leaving their former teams and joining another in hopes for contending, but backfired. Here are the 10 worst NBA superstar experiments this century. Starting from the very beginning, Grant Hill to the Orlando Magic. The 6'8" small forward was one of the best players in the NBA. After 6 incredible seasons with Detroit, was an unrestricted free agent. The Pistons dealt him in a sign and trade to Orlando for Chuggy Atkins and Ben Wallace. As a guy who made 5 All-NBA teams, Hill finished top 3 in MVP voting in '97, playing ahead of his time, essentially a point forward in an era where it was still heavily big men depended upon. The trade looked to be a steal for the Magic. Alongside young rising superstar Tracy McGrady, the duo was supposed to compete for many championships, but Hill was battered by ankle injuries, only played 4 games his first season, 14 games his second, and 29 his third, with the Magic forced to sit out his entire 4th year. Everything went wrong. In March 2003, after undergoing a major procedure on his ankle, Hill was rushed to the hospital with a high 104-degree fever, suffered a staph infection, was hospitalized, a near-death experience. His ankle never healed properly. Played just 47 total games his first 4 seasons with the team. McGrady was traded to Houston. Hill finally got to play almost a full year in 2005, became an all-star for the last time in his career, played in just 1 playoff series with the team, got swept by Detroit in '07, would end up becoming a solid role player with Phoenix afterwards, and played till 40 years old. Chris Webber to the Philadelphia 76ers. One of the most underrated power forwards of his generation, the former 5-time All-Star was at the height of his powers during the early 2000s. Viewed as the franchise player in Sacramento, Webber's team was in heavy contention, even finished 4th for MVP voting in 2001. After losing to the Lakers in a controversial series in '02, Sacramento was amongst the favorites to win it all the following season, but in the second game of the '03 semis against Dallas, Webber suffered a career-threatening knee injury, shadowed the Kings' title hopes, lost that series, returned for the final 23 game in '04, only to lose in the second round against MVP Kevin Garnett in a classic 7-game series into his early 30s. The Kings weren't the same team anymore. While Philadelphia was struggling, Iverson needed help, so in February of '05, Webber was sent to Philly along with 2 others for Kenny Thomas, Brian Skinner, and Carlos Williamson, but his point average dipped from over 21 a game to under 16 on just 39% shooting, struggled to fit in, got bounced in the first round by the Pistons. C-Web lost his lateral quickness and viewed as a defensive liability, benched in the 4th quarter numerous times. Despite averaging 20 and 10 in 2006, his team failed to make the playoffs. Frustrated and angry on the rebuilding team, Webber was eventually bought out with a year and a half left on his contract. 22 million old, was picked up by Detroit and lasted 9 games with Golden State. Played his last NBA game at 35 years and 1 day old in 2008. A brutal ending to a Hall of Fame caliber career. It's an absolute travesty he's still not in the Basketball Hall of Fame yet. Allen Iverson to Memphis. The answer was the face of the Sixers for his first 10.5 seasons. After the team struggles, adding C-Web didn't help, so AI was eventually dealt to Denver. After 2 seasons at the Mile High, the team traded him for Chauncey Billups, 2 others. The Nuggets got better without Iverson, while Detroit struggled mightily with chemistry problems. The team's identity wasn't the same, going from 59 wins with Billups to 39 with Iverson, getting swept in the first round with terrible communication between the players and front office. After his departure, AI signed with the Memphis Grizzlies. Of all places, a rebuilding team for a star at the twilight of his career, lasted not 1, not 2, but 3 total games with the franchise. Came off the bench, was diminished, took a leave of absence, then waived a week after, would resign with the Sixers, and that was it for his career. An awful ending to an incredible legend. Iverson simply refused to come off the bench at 34 years old, which was why he struggled to adapt at the latter stages of his career. Shaquille O'Neal to the Phoenix Suns, and then to the Cleveland Cavaliers. We don't even have to mention Boston. But starting with Phoenix, after a heated feud with Pat Riley in his third season in South Beach, traded a month before his 36th birthday for Marcus Banks and Shawn Marion, the Suns ended up with the 6th seed in the loaded West despite winning 55 games, lost to San Antonio in the first round, couldn't mesh with Amari, the team failed to make the playoffs in 09, traded to Cleveland for Slasha Pavlovich and Ben Wallace with a couple others. The older Shaq was brought in to slow down Dwight Howard after what he did to them in the 09 playoffs, but O'Neal had his last good season with Phoenix, went on to average just 12 points in 53 games, lost to Boston in the semis, barely made any impact in the playoffs, while the Suns made it to the conference finals without him that same season. Looking back, the Marion-O'Neal trade was a mistake. With all the incredible success Shaq had in his career, Father Time just wasn't friendly to him. Vince Carter to the Orlando Magic. After a couple great seasons with the Nets, the team was never the same after they traded Jason Kidd in the middle of the 07-08 season. Carter was also aging into his early 30s. The Magic came off a finals appearance with Hedo Turkoglu, who was going to be a free agent. The Magic traded Rafer Alston, Tony Batigue, and Courtney Lee for Carter and Ryan Anderson. With championship or bust aspirations being the favorites to come out the East, the Magic were supposed to win 60 plus games but had chemistry problems. Carter and Howard didn't really click, went on to have even worse numbers than his rookie season, a career low in every major statistical category, under 17 points, 3.5 rebounds, under 4 assists. The 33-year-old was a shell of himself. Viewed as an upgrade from Hedo Turkoglu, it was actually a downgrade. The Magic still won 59 games, went on to sweep through the Bobcats and Hawks in the first 2 rounds, only to get torched by the Celtics in Carter's first and only conference finals appearance. Missed a bunch of clutch shots down the stretch, was atrocious, scored just 15 points, getting spanked by 23 in game 3, went 1 for 9 from the field in game 4, a lucky 4-point win, 8 points on 3 of 10 in game 5, shot under 37% for the series, averaged under 14 a game, outplayed heavily by Paul Pierce. Carter played just 22 more games with the Magic the following season, averaged just 15 points, was traded after, getting a diminished Hedo Turkoglu back. The deal led to another terrible one for the franchise, which leads us to Gilbert Arenas signing with the Magic, a tragic decision for the franchise, whose championship window closed on them afterwards. The same day Carter was traded, with the team struggling desperately, looking to stay relevant. Arenas came off a devastating ACL injury 4 years before, was not the same player, despite signing a whooping 6 years, over $111 million deal in summer 2008, had a locker room incident, suspended and slowed down. Arenas was a shell of himself, averaged just 8 points in 21 games, barely produced, was waived after under the amnesty clause, signed by Memphis after, and was out of the league after 2012 with $40 million owed to him. The Orlando Tragic franchise stretched out his payments, paying Gilbert each of the next 5 years after he was cut, received his final paycheck in October 2016, 4.5 years after playing his final NBA game, despite his superstar career ruined by injuries, collecting millions for almost half a decade after retirement. Not a bad way to enjoy life after basketball. Dwight Howard to the Lakers 2012-2013, who was an absolute travesty during his first tenure with purple and gold. After undergoing back surgery, his numbers and production dipped. Jim Buss hired Mike D'Antoni as head coach over Phil Jackson, one of the worst decisions all time. Genie understood Coach D'Antoni didn't respect Howard's game and wasn't going to put him in a position to succeed, which was part of the reason why he left after 1 season. During Kobe's last amazing season, single-handedly dragging the team to the playoffs before tearing his Achilles, Howard got swept by San Antonio, left to Houston in free agency. That didn't work out either, was no longer considered a superstar after 2016, kept bouncing around from teams to team. Now it seemed like he put his negativity past behind and producing off the bench. Jimmy Butler to the Timberwolves 2017-18, a regrettable decision for a dysfunctional franchise. The team was viewed as contenders after being traded for Zach LaVine, Chris Dunn, and lottery pick Larry Marketing. Butler led Minnesota to 47 wins. The team struggled mightily when he was out, bounced in the first round to Houston, even turned down a 4-year $110 million contract, had a feud with his teammates at practice before the start of the following season. and dominated everybody. The season was supposed to be a stepping stone for the team, while the underachieving Wiggins wasn't living up to his 5-year, $150 million deal. Butler had no faith in the young guys, demanded a trade for Jared Bayless, who's no longer in the NBA, Robert Covington and Dario Saric no longer with the Wolves. The franchise remains a mess, while Butler's enjoying a successful season in Miami, played a total of 69 games in a Wolves uniform. Kyrie Irving to the Boston Celtics, which lasted from 2017 to 2019, after shockingly demanding a trade out of nowhere in summer 2017. The whole NBA was caught by surprise, shifted to Boston where he was viewed as the franchise player, put up good numbers, but missed 22 regular season games. The team was a game away from reaching the finals without him, which created questions about his value. He wasn't even with the team on the bench in Game 7, which showed how much he really cared. After LeBron left for Los Angeles, it seemed like the East was Boston's for the taking. Being back healthy alongside Gordon Hayward, Irving even stated he planned to resign, then got angry when asked about the free agency remarks, stating, "Ask me July 1st, I don't owe anybody shit." The team's record was worse with him on the floor, and the guys played way better without him. Being the 4 seed instead of the 1 was already a disappointment, and was absolutely terrible on all cylinders in the semis against Milwaukee. Lost in 5, shot under 36% from the field, 22 from 3, a disgraceful performance. Was out the door after, signed with the Nets, and has been bothered by injuries his first season in Brooklyn. Carmelo Anthony to the Houston Rockets. After an underwhelming season in OKC, the 34-year-old seemed like a great fit as a pick and pop guy on a vet minimum. The Rockets even convinced him to come off the bench. Lasted only 10 games, despite having 3 of them scoring 20 or more. Houston went 4-6, played awful defense, but it wasn't totally his fault. GM Daryl Morey let him go, with Anthony blindsided, traded him to the Bulls for basically nothing. Chicago waived him after, was out the league for over a year, and now a solid role player on Portland. Melo wasn't given a fair shot with the Rockets to begin with, viewed as the scapegoat. Honorable mentions include Stephon Marbury's failed tenure with the Knicks, viewed as the hometown hero, swept in the 04 playoffs, failed to lead his team, had public disputes with his coaches, was brought out in 08, signed by Boston, then went overseas, became a legend in China. While Amari with the Knicks looked to be a great signing, but after Melo's arrival, stats injuries continued to pile up, didn't have his star powers anymore. While Darren Williams to the Nets was awful as well, since he never lived up to his expectations, only won 1 playoff series in 4.5 seasons, and Jermaine O'Neal to Toronto wasn't great either, since they gave up Roy Hibbert. O'Neal never panned out, lasted 41 games before being traded to Miami. Which one of these signings was the worst superstar experiment in your opinion? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching this video. More good stuff coming soon. See you next time.